Season 4 of Shadowlands was definitely an interesting experiment from Blizzard. They managed to integrate all new dungeons, really powerful seasonal effects, and they managed to get pugs to just completely lose all sensibility. If you have a look at some of the stats from Season 4 compared to previous seasons, you'll be absolutely flabbergasted at the results. It had nearly a 60% disband rate, and it floated above 50% for the entire season, even week 1, 2, and 3. 242 dungeons entered and only 103 of them finished. Compare that to even season 1 or season 2 and you see we didn't even reach 30%. In season 1 I did 482 keys and I still only had 137 disbands. Whereas in season 4 it was only actually 11 weeks. It was 12 weeks total, but I did not even do a key week 12 and we still had 2 more disbands in season 4 than we did in season 1, despite doing just under half the keys. So bad news for me, but good news for all of you because that means we have a action-packed spreadsheet here. I'm going to be taking a look at all the disbands just like we've been doing. But if you go back to the stats and you look at the actual dungeons, you start to see where a lot of the problems came. 86 out of the 139 disbands were in 2 dungeons, both of them the Karazhan dungeons. 80% disband rate for Upper Karazhan. It's also the dungeon I entered the most because I still only have it on like 22, despite having 26s in most keys. But before we get into the hilarity, I do want to clarify some things that I see some confusion around every time I talk about this topic. A lot of people think that I'm either unfairly blaming people or trying to like boil down an entire dungeon's worth of failure into one person's mistake at the end. But I think most of that criticism is coming from somebody who thinks that a non-timed key and a disband are the exact same thing. And I absolutely do not subscribe to that notion. I think there's plenty of reasons to finish keys, even if you're only interested in score. A lot of people are quick to give up, and this is why a dungeon like Upper Karazhan is so difficult because people never actually learn from their mistakes. This is why I catalog this info, because I am trying to solve this problem. Whether I make a mistake or someone else makes a mistake that makes the key not go great, that does not mean that people should be leaving the key, especially because many times they leave and give up before the key is definitely out of time. So on this disband spreadsheet, we try to assign blame for the disband, not the failure of the timer. This spreadsheet is looking at those who offend the key in a way that either results in people leaving or are the direct actor in the leaving and the breaking up of the group. So of course my name will appear on this list, but I personally will never leave a key myself. So the only time I would directly blame myself is when I do something very bad, very dumb, very poor play in general that causes everybody else to either get really mad or just completely give up on the key, which I recognize now as a fact of life. And a lot of what we're doing here is now calling this mutual disbanding. Basically when it seems like everybody wants to quit, then instead of trying to assign blame to that, we'll just say, forget it, mutual disband. And those are on the spreadsheet too, but those are the run-of-the-mill ones where we just fail a single thing and we move on. So hopefully that's clear. You can absolutely not time keys, still learn from it. There's no reason to give up. There's no reason some of these keys should be disbands. And I do firmly believe that the people who are leaving keys early are making the whole community worse, not just like in terms of toxicity, but also in terms of skill. And I think that's why a lot of the community is frankly playing so poorly, so reliably, because everybody just gives up after one mistake that when they actually get past that mistake, they have really no idea what's next. You can do Upper Karazhan 50 times and never see the last boss. So anyway, I just wanted to state all that. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Either way, you guys came for some disbands, right? You guys came for some hilarity. Well, we got plenty of that. Let's take a look. This time around, I actually did it as it happened too, and there's so many on this spreadsheet that I remember so well. It's only been like 10 weeks ago at worst, so I'll definitely encourage you guys to take a look at this as well. The link will be down below. You guys will find even more hidden gems than what I'm about to show, but this one I remember very well. Yeah, this guy basically has like never healed this boss before in his life. This is like the week 1. This might even be like day 1 of the season. Quell the Lost Hunter says, heal noob. And the guy actually says, true. He goes, can't even argue right now. Sorry, guys. He actually apologizes. But then you take a look at the actual details beater. Yeah, that is a discipline priest. You don't see that very often. I'm going to do a whole thing about Upper Karazhan at the end, but I remember this one very well. I didn't really realize how bad this dungeon was going to be at the time. Let's just let my old self speak for this one. Shrug is really struggling, yep. Yeah, this key is over, says this guy who did 10k DPS on the boss with Lust. Alright, well that's the first like actual disband that needs to go on the spreadsheet. I'm not gonna sit and learn the bosses. I've done this on a 20. You should put learning group in the title, says the guy who died 3 times. Hugging World is just kind of wild. And this was very early in the season too. It gets a lot worse in this dungeon. These ones always look the funniest to me. Like if you actually just see the action that appears on the screen, it's always really funny to me. This is actually funny too, though. Watch what actually happens here. The guy spreads out from quaking into the water wave things, whatever these mechanics are. We already got somebody dead. TNT Royal from Azralan gets hit by an avoidable mechanic, then leaves. This one is one of 2 runs on this list that are going to dramatically change my opinion of Iron Docks. This guy makes a complete fool out of himself, but it's a very interesting problem we have here. He's already complaining about the group for whatever reason. 2 hunters, very normal comp, but you see the shadow eruption begins, and thanks to really well-made video game, you can't actually see where it is. It's like stopped by the floor or something like that. And so this healer actually gets hit by it. Looking back on it, it's pretty obvious that this is really not his fault for getting hit by it. Blizzard did a terrible job with this. Then you see what actually happens, and this is why it's on the sheet. He goes, no CCs, no stuns, no interrupts. I'm out, sorry. Then everybody starts to tell him that he died to the shadow eruption. Nothing to do with either of those things. So we made it past Curator. We're on Shade and Medivh now. You'll also see a funny thing in the actual group, but it's not what you think. This is where we really see just absolute, kind of just not paying attention. I want to say just like really poor play from people. It's one of the most dangerous fights ever in the game. It's a tyrannical week early in the season. We have a very dangerous mechanic coming up called Frostbite. It's on this monk fella right here. He's got his interrupt available, and watch what happens. Just completely AFK, just lets it go right off, doesn't have any concern for it whatsoever. And so now we're coming to a head here. The boss is at 6% health. We have a very dangerous cast Inferno Bolt going out on the healer who is out of mana. Only 1 interrupt available. What do you think is going to happen? Vote down below. Hopefully it's birds. Actually, no. Hopefully it's Flame Wraith, yeah. And as long as it's not on the Druid, on the Druid. We die to the Flame Wreath, and we die mostly because he didn't use his interrupt on the Fireball right before the Flame Wreath. And he goes, how? And he goes, because you don't know how to interrupt. He fails to interrupt the Ice Block, but the real problem is he fails to interrupt the Fireball right before the Flame Wreath, which is really important that you do, because if both dots go on the same person, it's extremely unlikely they're going to live. But then he says, do you know what Flame Wreath is? The Druid actually recognizes it. He said, I had Flame Wreath and a Fireball dot, unhealable that late in the fight. And yep, he's entirely out of mana, and then he leaves. But it's quite funny because we got Sanark? What's that guy's name? Who's that? This is a different dungeon, but same guy. He says, I hate this ad. Why we pull? Like adding a 4th boss. I said, this boss buffs us. He says, why do we skip the easy ones like these 2? I said, we don't need them for count. He says, but these 2 are easy to kill, faster, and give the same. I said, okay, you want a tank? I can dip. He said, I dare you. Hunter's coming to my defense. He says, how childish are you, Locke? It's a great question. Now they see you as you are. Plenty of season left that we could get this guy 3 more times. I love seeing it though. I love seeing the same name on here 3 times, man. I said he creates the perfect definition of toxic disband after backseating routes. And it's crazy because this guy is true to form. It's quite funny because he says, why no affix pulls as we're fighting one of the affixes? But again, he's complaining about the Zolgamux pulls. And actually, I have to give him credit. In his own twisted way, he actually makes me a better player because he's right. You know, these are not ideal pulls. This is super early in the season, but I do actually come to agree, both Iron Docks and Gambit. We end up changing the route on. He's not wrong. It is such a bad pull. It's the same argument too. I don't realize who it actually is, but watch how this goes. I said, do you want a tank? He goes, yes, everyone follow. He's actually going to soul shape into the mobs to just kill himself. Like, wow, this dude is committed to trying to be right on this topic. So I start trolling him back. I said, noob tank can't even survive that. And this is where he goes from annoying to a legend. He starts arguing with this resto shaman before the key starts, and basically his only defense is, I can't do good damage without fairies and PI. So as you see, he's like lower than the tank on every pull. And he says, I'd have CDs if you were a priest. Why so small pulls? We won't time. No one told me this is for completion. Now I've actually recognized him because this is much, much later in the season. I says, you are literally the most toxic person I have ever played with in 6 years of pugging. And I actually completely stand by that. And again, we pulled Solgamux actually by accident this time. Ironically, his first argument in this dungeon made me change the route, but somebody aggroes it anyway. And here we are, true to form. This ad has wasted 3 minutes. Admits it, he says, I'm not staying for completion, by the way. Oh yeah, also before the dungeon started, he was insulting the hunter because he's playing BM, which I mean, I kind of get, but he says GG BM is bad as he's like blowing the other two guys out of the water. I said 3 keys this season, and he has done this in all 3, and it's so true. He's literally like, at least he's not changing who he is, man. This dude just really wants to play a tank, but he doesn't realize it. Just go play a tank, man. Just go play. You'd be much happier being the tank. I just think it's so funny that he's basically saying, like, my class can't do damage unless you do exactly what I want. Back to normal stuff, though. This one's funny. I've definitely made a mistake here. I don't really know what I'm thinking at this point in the key. I guess I'm thinking, like, okay, the pack's over. Let's move on and go do the boss. But I just start running out. I'm not even paying attention to the fire at all. And everybody also follows me. So the whole group dies besides me and the healer. And then the Ragnaros Hunter is very agitated. And I can see why. But frankly, not a very big mistake. I mean, it was kind of dumb of my part, of course. But as you guys know, if you have like over 13 minutes here, you usually have a pretty good chance of time, especially on Fortified. And we are sitting here with 15 minutes at this point. Just got to run back and keep going. But not with the Hunter from Ragnaros, who decides to take the key into his own hand and leaves a group that should be a very easy upgrade. All right, this was pretty bad. It's a facepalm moment. I'm embarrassed looking back at this one. So we basically just full wipe to the first boss. And of course, you know, I'm sitting here trying to convince these guys to do it again. This guy says, you need a summon if we're going again. And so the shaman, this is hilarious on its own. He says, this isn't RIP. But so I'm like, just tilted and mad about this, and I don't fully understand what this guy's talking about needing a summon for. I remember looking at this and I see his character. He's here, right? Like you could see his character. So I'm like, no, you're not getting a summon, dude. Let's go. Pull the boss again, you know? That's my mentality. But he hearths anyway. And I don't really understand this, but I guess he's hearthing now or something. But again, his dot is still here. He's still in the dungeon. And he's just not attacking. So I don't look at it. I don't really understand any of this. He says, I need a summon because I was on Naya. And I literally said it. The shaman actually kind of agrees with me. He said, should be prepared before we start. Yeah, I just don't really think it's that big of a deal that you would ever hearth for that. But this is actually why it's so funny, because everybody wants to stay. Like, we're going to continue. Okay, no problem. I made a fool out of myself there, but all good. We just keep going here. I said, hey, let's just summon him and we can keep going. The shaman's like, I want to leave. I want to leave. I want to leave. But we're not leaving. He's staying. We're going. Let's do this. We tried to summon him, but of course, in workshop, you're not allowed to summon people for whatever reason. A lot of people speculated it's because they didn't want people summoning past like the little trap up there, but we do it. I assume it works. I just don't even know this at this point in the season. And he says, bugged, I need one more. Ironically, yeah, like this guy can't actually hearth and get summoned, so he basically disbands the key on his own because of that. But I said, level a new tune, we'll wait. Here's a good one to have in the video because this monk is actually a 3K score player they invited to this key. It's a 23 lower Karazhan. At this point in the season, this is still an absolute nemesis key for me. I'm pretty sure my highest fortified lower Karazhan at this point is like under 20, 100%. And we wipe here to the trash. I actually get hit by a sleep cloud. What a surprise. And the guy says, yeah, that's GG. And the hunter actually is taking the logical standpoint saying, with that attitude, yeah, it's over. Certainly timer not looking great. But my point is here that as long as we finish this, I'm getting score. And I think this really starts to blur the line. Of course, he leaves, and it's really frustrating because this is the problem with this dungeon. I can't actually finish this key. I'm like 4 key levels behind on these keys. And literally, as long as we just finished a key that was, you know, of 25 or higher, I would have some score added to my sheet. But because we never finish it, I'm just never able to make progress on this dungeon. Here's another really bad one that kind of tells the tale of the season. So we're pulling the Dreadlords through the gate here. The boss needs to be reset. We have 3 ranged DPS who can do it. Nobody does it. The boss just runs right into us. And as I'm trying to reset it, the gate closes. So we are going to wipe here. This is not even 3 minutes into the dungeon. We wiped pretty much nothing. The Dreadlords retained the health and the damage we dealt to them. But yeah, rip key, says Spielgirl Quel'Thalos. Ironically, another 3 times entry on the spreadsheet, by the way. Pretty much the same mentality we saw with the previous player here. Just constant excuse making, more talking than actual playing. And the Holy Priest says 10 deaths, 0 defensive used, but used a O instead of a 0. 0 defensives used and healing. Here's another just like physically funny one. Just something that looks funny when you see it happen. So we got the Hyperlight Jolt coming out. People are supposed to be going to the stars here. We missed that one, and then there's one all the way over there. But just nobody gets to it. So the priest just dies, and then everybody kind of starts arguing. But then there you go. The player just like leaves during the boss fight, man. Here's one I actually published. Look at that, 5K, almost 6K views on this. This is Junkyard. I mean, honestly, one of the easiest keys ever. Got people dying to tyrannical bosses. And here we go, charge smash, boom, 3, 2, 1 shot to priest. Nobody else tries to soak it. Thank you for stopping by. This guy says a classy LOL, then leaves the party. Then you just have your run-of-the-mill problems like this one, pretty benign. We got the ads out. They're gonna do this, cast this shuriken blitz, and no other human beings are gonna interrupt it, so we're gonna let that go off in a 26. Lupa from Nemesis says dot 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 can't be real. Oh, it is. I assure you, it's very, very real. Similar thing here in this 25 Grim Rail. You got to get these items and use them to complete the encounter, but we are multiple minutes in and Nitrog's still at 60%. Warlock says Hunter has 2. Hunter, get boss. Selfish lover. He's not that selfish. Pretty much just kind of straight up wipe to this, so the guy just picks it up and never does it. Reminds me a lot of Necrotic Wake, where if people just never hit the hooks, you literally can't beat the boss. Like, it's just not possible to beat the boss. Look at all these mobs up to. This is ridiculous. This is like 5 minutes into the phase at this point. He says, this Hunter, LeMayo, you picked up 2. Get the fucking, with the only a C, get the fucking boss out. The Hunter said, no, I only had 1. He goes, you fucking idiot, you had 23. Rah! It just makes me sad looking at this footage of me and Karazhan, man. Like, I know how much pain I'm in watching this happen. We wipe again to Medivh, then they start complaining about interrupting. He says, when 3 Inferno and a Frostbite that needs another Inferno go off, it's not a good thing. Meanwhile, we just died during the bird phase. The guy's like, well, yeah, that's because I burned my CD on keeping the kick people alive through the Inferno bolts. I was like, so what? If you don't have CDs for the second birds, we just are wiping or what? He's like, oh, I can heal it. This boss and this dungeon in general just eating groups alive. I've never really seen anything like this before, honestly. It's really wild. I actually published a whole video on this one because this is funny. Iron Docks is also another one that we really had a lot of trouble with, but it's usually not this kind of mistake. It's just hard. It's a really tight timer, and for me personally as a tank, I feel like there's a lot of responsibility and I do a pretty poor job of it at times, but this one really lightens the mood when you see something like this. Look at this. Wow, just airball that star, man. Misses everything. We got 3 Grods coming, and that guy just hardcore whiffs. But this might be the funniest because this is a combo one. We got the first entry here with Arya, another Holy Priest here, and we got a funny little combination of classes in this group making their life a little bit harder. We got Trick Jones, the fire mage from Azralan, spamming about PI here. He goes, Priest, oh you, oh I mean wait, what, wrong keys, PI. He says, PI one of us, homie. Ravioli from Tichondrius. Love ravioli, by the way. I should clarify, I don't mean this player, I mean the food. Then the Warlock, who was named after a food I used to like, but now I hate, aggro's that robot, and the priest who didn't PI anyone before says, nice Worklock. That's a really bad misspelling. You can't do a gate to skip? And then the Warlock says, this guy toxic, lol. I'm toxic, question mark, lol. PI, the mage is back with, he doesn't have anything else to say. He just wants PI. He doesn't care about anything else. He just wants you to give him power infusion, you stupid priest. Why are you not giving it to him? Can't you see he's gonna beat the Warlock on this pack? It's funny though, because then I pull all this trash back here, and this guy runs ahead and gets healer threat on it, so he just dies as they're funneling in. And this guy's in spirit form, and this guy's still talking about power infusion. So we pull the boss and just wipe, you know, standard wipes here, nothing special here. We end up just failing the key. Then the guy just leaves, kind of unceremoniously. Well, that was in September, and then when you type the name into the sheet, you see there's a second entry, and that's because it's actually the last key we do of the season, and this is the perfect way to end the season without question. So this guy's dead again in the same dungeon we just did before, and we just saw him die to this pack. This is the exact same pull, but he's dead again. He says, okay, WTF, and the Hunter's like, dude, it's bursting. He goes, nope, I died to aggro. Well, that's kind of ironic because he died to aggro in the previous clip, but in this one, as you see, he gets hit by the Carrion Swarm, the frontal from the Dreadlord. Manages to accurately predict his failure from like 2 months prior in this key here. But then we get to Medivh again, and this is kind of where it becomes like the end of the season moment for me. We basically wiped to this this bird phase again, man. How many times have we lost the key to this phase? And he says, yeah, stand in the middle so you can get hit by all 3. Now, honestly, I don't know that this is a thing. People are saying it is. You can line of sight them or something like that. I've never seen anybody do that. But hey, if that's true, then that's cool. But you know what, man? This is a 24. If you can't heal this fight, and I don't know if it's the healers or if it's the game or Blizzard or who we're blaming here, but man, this dungeon just is absurd, and we can never get past this boss. Tyrannical, this is a dungeon that I've needed for the whole season. I've been waiting to get a 24, a 25, a 26 in this dungeon the whole season, and we just go week after week after week with Disbands. This dungeon absolutely has my number, and to prove that to you, I got something a little special here for you. As is tradition, we do a little singing during these, and this time the backdrop is going to be something very special, very representative of what this season has done. I think we have the perfect song for this adventure. On a cold winter morning, in the time before the light, in flames of death's eternal rain, we ride towards the fight. When the darkness is falling down and the times are tough, alright, the sound of evil laughter falls around the world tonight. Fighting on through the steel and the wastelands evermore. The scattered souls will feel the hell, bodies washed on the shore. On the blackest plain in hell's domain, we watch them as they go. In fire and pain now, once again we know. So now we fly ever free, we're free before the thunderstorm. On toward the wilderness our quest carries on. Far beyond the sundown, far beyond the moonlight, and deep inside our hearts and all our souls. So far away we wait for the day, for the lives also wasted and gone. We feel the pain of a lifetime lost in 1,000 days. Through the fire and the flames we carry on. As the red day is dawning and the lightning cracks the sky, they'll raise their hands to the heavens above with resentment in their eyes. Running back through the mid-morning light, there's a burning in my heart. We're banished from a time in a fallen land to a life beyond the stars. In your darkest dreams, see to believe our destiny this time, and endlessly we'll all be free tonight. And on the wings of a dream so far beyond reality, all alone in desperation, now the time has gone. Lost inside you'll never find, lost within my own mind. Day after day this misery must go on. So far away we'll wait for the day, for the lives also wasted and gone. We feel the pain of a lifetime lost in 1,000 days. Through the fire and the flame we carry on. Through the fire and the flame we carry on. Through the fire and the flame we carry on. See you guys in season 1 of Dragonflight. Can't wait.